for coming tonight. We are very pleased that you are here and that we have the opportunity to have this candidates forum. I'm Marion Hicks. I'm with Roswell Women's Club Public Affairs Committee, and I have to tell you, I've had an incredible committee, but I would like at this time to thank my committee. The city of Roswell has been unbelievable, and all of you for coming, and all of the candidates and their supporters in all the hundreds of emails that have gone back and forth. Thank you. Will you please stand and join me in the pledge to the flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One more thing. Okay, tonight all of the candidates are seated and they will all be up there at the same time. When they are elected, there is no designation as to which area they will be liaison for. That is done after the election and probably the first part of the year when the mayor does that. So they can legitimately be questioned at the same time. We have with us tonight Hatcher Hurd as our moderator. He has been here with us with Roswell Women's Club and the candidates forums we have done in the past. He does an excellent job. He probably needs no introduction, but he is executive editor of Apin Media Group. He told me to keep this short. His background is as publishers, and he's been with newspaper publications, many of them. He has a BA in history, a minor in political science, Georgia State University, 1985, and a master's communication at Georgia State University, 1987. He is involved in a number of civic organizations on the boards, and as someone who works with them very, very carefully. He has accomplished many things, but the Association of Free Community Newspapers in 2014, he received first place, Best Original Writing News, and in 2014, honorable mention, Best Column to Inform the Public. So please join me in welcoming Hatcher Hurd, and then the program will be turned over to him. Thank you, Hatcher.
And before we get started, we do have one candidate unopposed, Judge Brian Hansford, and he's graciously agreed to say a couple of words, I guess, to thank us for not having anybody run against him.
Thank you, Hatcher. Good evening, everyone. It's always strange to me that I stand in front of a courtroom of people most days and do this, and it's still different than standing in front of all of you. The first thing I'd like to say is I would like to just recognize and commend everyone who is up there tonight. I don't know if you've ever run for office or not, but it's a very arduous process for both the candidate and the candidate's family. And whether or not you agree with any of their respective positions, I hope that you share the same respect that I have for them for giving of themselves and of their time to engage in this process. So thank you all for what you're doing. I've been given 2 minutes, so I just decided rather than talking about me, I wanted to tell you about your court. Your court is functioning very well right now. There are 3 particular initiatives I wanted to tell you about, and I obviously can't expand on them in 2 minutes, but if you have additional questions, you can reach me by email or telephone, and I'll be glad to expand on them. Number 1 is we see a lot of the same people over and over again in our court who have mental health issues, and obviously as a municipal court, we don't have the funding or the access to the same things that state and superior courts have to get those people the help that they need. So it becomes a cycle. And so what we've done is we've reached out to the Superior Court of Fulton County that actually has a mental health court, and we are forming a relationship with them so that we can take some of these cases in the right instances and pass those cases on to Fulton County so that these people can get into the mental health court and receive the services that that court can provide, both financial services and primarily treatment services, hopefully to end that cycle of recidivism. Secondly, we've got a new under 21 driver program that we are utilizing. Under 21 drivers in Georgia can't plead nolo contendere, which means that they get points on their record and their parents' insurance goes up. So when we have under 21 drivers who come to court, if it's not excessive, if the ticket's not excessive, and if they have a clean record, we have a program that we've implemented to help keep those offenses off their record, keep parents' insurance down, but also to hopefully educate them on better driving habits. So that's number 2. Number 3 is a customer service attitude, which I know is strange for a court, but it's something I believe in. I practice in courts everywhere, every day when I'm not sitting on the bench, and I can tell you that a lot of courts don't treat people so well. It's intimidating. And we have a philosophy that people who come to court are our customers. And we could all wind up in the same situation, whether it's with a ticket or charged with an offense. So I have a rule that we treat everyone just like we would treat our neighbor, and it's worked out pretty well so far. I think most people are happy with the way they're treated when they come to court. Nobody likes to come to court, but we like to make it as pleasurable as possible. Thank you for your time tonight, and I'll turn it back over to Hatcher.
Oh, these are,
Yes.
yes, we have a few special guests. First, I'd like to recognize Nancy Diamond, City Councilwoman. Thank you. It is permissible to stand so we can see. Thank you. Jerry Orens, Post 5. Ken Eigelhart, Post 4. Kent's not here? Okay. State Senator John Albers. State Representative Dr. Betty Price. And they tell me your husband's supposed to be here. Congressman Dr. Tom Price, is he here? He's in Washington. He's in Washington. He couldn't make it. Well, he's a little busy, I'm sure. Thank you very much. All right. Next, I would like to take this time to introduce the candidates for Post 1. Rich Dippolito, if you don't mind standing. Richard and his wife of 14 years are residents of Roswell, 14-year residents of Roswell. He has served as the Post 1 councilman since 2008, and for 2 years prior, he served on the Roswell Planning Commission. He's also served on the Roswell Redevelopment Task Force and the Holcomb Ridge East Revitalization Task Force. He has spent 25 years working in architectural design and real estate, and he is a partner with Concordia Properties. His public service includes serving as a trustee for the Roswell North Education Foundation, chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee, and he has served on the North Fulton Comprehensive Transportation Plan Stakeholders Committee. Thank you. The other Post 1 candidate is Marcelo Zapata. Marcelo is a native of Buenos Aires, Argentina, born to parents who were a teacher and a lawyer. His father was also a congressman in his country. Marcelo and his wife and daughter have made Roswell their home for the last 15 years. He has an international trade degree and an MBA. He is a businessman who owns his own wine distribution company, whose customers are family-owned businesses throughout Georgia. He is running out of a concern for the future development and growth of this historic city. He pledges to work with fellow council members and city staff to make the best decisions possible. He also pledges to communicate and keep the community informed. Thank you. Post 2, Michael Palermo. Stand. Mike moved from an historic town to Roswell in 2008. He chose this city specifically to make his home for his wife and one-year-old daughter, Vienna Rose. He has just finished his final requirement to obtain his MBA from Emory University. He has worked in financial services the last 9 years, where he leads a support team that works with corporate clients in negotiating contractual terms. He serves as a subject matter expert in financial reporting. Thank you. Becky Wynn. Becky Wynn has been serving the interests of Roswell and Fulton County for some 20 years. She currently serves as a Roswell councilwoman since she was first elected to that office in 2007. She began her community service first as a community advocate. Later, she worked as an aide to Fulton County Chairman Mike Kinn, then worked for Commissioner Bob Fulton. She has worked on various city, county, and state committees, helping to craft legislation that included creation of a code enforcement board. Her focus for the city is controlled, responsible revitalization and redevelopment. She will continue to work to maintain the city's balanced budget, AAA bond rating, without raising the millage rate. Thank you. Now in that crowded post 3. Shayne Gray, would you stand, please? Thank you. Shayne is a Roswell native who can trace his roots in the city back 8 generations. He has worked at his company 19 years where he holds a leadership position. He says his position has him working to establish budgets, make decisions, while ensuring the company works with efficiency and maximizing profitability. He finds creative solutions for the best outcomes for his company, clients, and employees. He is responsible for the performance of 19 dealerships in 7 cities in Georgia and Tennessee. Shayne plans to use his business experience and creative energy for the betterment of Roswell. Thank you. Don Horton. Don is a graduate of the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Sorry about that game. After a successful career in music, he has transitioned into a career in financial services and is a chartered financial consultant. Don and his family moved to Roswell in 1986. He has served 8 years as president of the Club of North Point and is a member of the Roswell chapter of the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing, now known as the Roswell Initiative for Community Housing. Among his other associations, he's a member of the Kettering Executive Network and the Rotary Club of Roswell. He and his wife, Gail, have 2 children and 5 grandchildren. Thank you. Nathan Porter. Nathan was born in California and grew up in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. He attended college for 3 years before financial problems forced him to drop out. But he has spent the last 15 years as an entrepreneur, and he and his wife own 2 businesses. They moved to Roswell in 2011 and have 2 daughters. Thank you. Ricky Spencer. Ricky and his wife have been residents of Roswell for more than 60 years. He began his career as a Roswell firefighter in 1975, a career that has spanned 39 years. He was a firefighter, paramedic, and the last 10 years he was the Roswell Fire Chief and was named Georgia Fire Chief of the Year in 2013. He retired in 2014. Ricky pledges to work hard as a councilman for the citizens of Roswell. All right, ladies and gentlemen, these are your candidates, and we will begin with post 1, and we will have their own introductions, and this time we'll start with Marcelo Zapata.
Thank you to the Roswell Women Club for organizing this event, and for all of you for being here today with us to learn more directly from the candidates. As a citizen of this great nation, I'm grateful for many things that are unique to our country. I love that government flow from the bottom up, not from the top down. The Constitution says that ours is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. That is even more true for local government because it has the biggest impact on our everyday life. Roswell is a great city, and my family and I have been blessed to live here. But I know our city can do even greater, and that is why I'm running for post 1. We need fundamental change in this city council because the people who represent us have lost touch of our concerns. I represent the departure from irresponsible high-density development over the objection of residents and without supporting infrastructure first, from bumper-to-bumper traffic 7 days a week on local and state roads, and from decisions made without solid data to support them. I also believe our government should be more open. We deserve a city government that does more than is required by state law. We deserve a city government that does what is right for the residents. This election is very important for Roswell. We want to take our city in a new direction. We a diverse growth strategy that makes sense with a strong small business community and with open and transparent government. Then we need some new faces in this table. My opponent and the city council, for the last 8 years, they had it their way. They had it the chance, and it's not working for the resident of Roswell. I hope that you will give me the chance to serve you and bring my resident perspective and my business perspective to the important decision this city council has to make in the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dippolito.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Roswell Women's Club for organizing this forum. It takes a lot of work to put something like this on, and I really appreciate all the effort. And I appreciate each and every one of you for being here tonight. I'd also like to thank my lovely wife, Kelly, and my daughters, Caitlin and Kristen, whose love and support really make it possible for me to serve each and every one of you. I have a lot of conversations with Roswell residents, and the one thing I consistently hear is that they love Roswell because it's such a great place to live. That's why my first priority is protecting and enhancing our quality of life. We have attractive neighborhoods, quality recreation, beautiful parks, creative arts and culture, and excellent schools. We also have a scenic river setting, historic charm, quality restaurants, and abundant festivals and events. All these go into making Roswell a unique, thriving community. We have a quality of life here in Roswell that is second to none. I'd put our quality of life up against any other city in this entire nation. That's why my family and I are glad to call Roswell home, and that's why each of you are as well, I'm sure. That's also why I consider it a pleasure to serve our community, and while I will fight to protect our neighborhoods and enhance our quality of life. With a rebounding real estate market, we need to be especially vigilant in reviewing development proposals to protect against negative impacts to our existing neighborhoods, city services, and city infrastructure. Quality growth is essential. Roswell's fortunate to have over 900 acres of parkland and a number of streams and creeks all within its borders. These natural resources provide recreation and education opportunities, as well as hundreds of acres of undisturbed natural area for our city. Continued protection, maintenance, and investment in these natural assets contributes to our great quality of life. Just as integral to our Roswell community are its schools, the arts, and an abundance of nonprofit organizations, all of which enrich our lives in very meaningful ways. Partnerships with these organizations enable each organization to expand its ability to serve Roswell and enhance our quality of life. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Your involvement in our community makes Roswell a better place.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo, your opening statement.
Sounds good. And I also want to thank the Roswell Women's Club for putting this together. I appreciate everybody that was able to come out tonight. We have a very important election in front of us, and I appreciate you being here to really make this very important decision on who you want to serve you. With that, I am Mike Palermo, and I am here asking you to hire me to serve you on your city council. This is very important that I really want to work for you. And with that, I just want you to know that I really see and I feel that I've talked to so many residents that also feel that just Roswell is such a great place to live. It has so many great things that it offers. It has strong, established neighborhoods, unique history, and really the best parks anywhere. And with that, my wife and I, we have a 1-year-old, and God willing, our family will grow. And it is just so important that really for the sake of my family and the sake of your families, we need to make sure that Roswell continues to be the best area in all of Metro Atlanta. I am concerned with the direction that City Council has been bringing us. We have all seen this much higher density, development approaching our neighborhoods and our historic places. We need to protect what makes Roswell special. And on top of that, it is irresponsible to rezone when there's not the proper infrastructure in place to support this much higher density. And when I say infrastructure, I'm referring specifically to traffic, really the strain on our traffic, and the strain on our school systems. So although I really want to protect our neighborhoods and protect our history, I very much want to make sure to increase development where we need it. And what I mean by that is really the blighted areas. So think of with Highway 9 or Holcomb Bridge where we have vacant strip malls. These are the areas where I really want to focus our development instead of really approaching our neighborhoods. And with that, so I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me today.
Thank you. Becky, Wynn, your
Thank you,
opening
Hatcher.
statement.
I appreciate it, and thank you, Women's Club, for putting this on for tonight. Since I was elected to the City Council 8 years ago, I have constantly reviewed my performance to make sure that I'm doing what I promised to preserve, protect, and enhance our quality of life. And since we've been approaching our November 3rd election, I want to kind of share what we've been doing the last 8 years. And through the recession and the recovery, I've concentrated on careful balancing budgets. And as a result, we have kept our services high, we've kept our millage rate the same, and we've maintained our AAA bond rating. The city has developed tax incentives, formed an economic development organization, revised our codes, and created a downtown development authority, which is helping to rehabilitate those blighted, aging commercial centers that my opponent was talking about. Roswell's unique character is what brought my husband of 42 years and me here to Roswell, and this is where we want to stay and retire. And while we're sometimes handcuffed by state law, last year we denied 40% of the rezoning applications because they were not appropriate for our city. And since the inception of the new codes, we're running closer to 50%. And of those that are approved, they are primarily conditioned based on neighborhood input. So yes, I am listening to the neighbors. I live here too, so quality of life is important to me. That's why we've added an adaptive sports field for our disabled citizens, have increased the resources for beautifying our parks and our maintenance of our parks. And because you supported our recent bond referendum, we have now have a therapeutic pool for our seniors and for our our citizens with disabilities. Having been a neighborhood advocate for many years before taking office, I have been in your shoes many, many, many times and understand that listening to you is critical. I humbly ask for your vote, and I would be honored to serve you for the next 4 years. Thank you so much.
Nathan Porter, your statement.
I just want to thank everybody for coming and thank the Roswell Women's Club as well for putting this on. And I also want to apologize to everybody for being late. My flight was 2.5 hours delayed. Otherwise, I promised I would have been here on time. But just to introduce myself a little bit more, I'm a millennial. And a lot of times when I listen to these Roswell City Council meetings and when I listen to a lot of people talk, what I hear is how they talk about how they want to preserve Roswell for the future. They want to preserve Roswell for their kids and grandkids. I can be some of your guys' grandkids, just so you guys know. But they want to do it at the price of indebting their kids and grandkids. They want to take out bonds for senior pools, and they want to take out bonds for artificial turf. All those are things that people in my generation are going to have to pay for. Not necessarily the people that are voting for this stuff, not necessarily the people that live here now, but it's the future generations that are going to have to pay for it. And I'm not necessarily opposed to these, what I call vanity projects, these wants that we have in the city. What I prefer we do instead, though, is focus on our needs first. We need to put our wants aside, and we need to focus on needs. And the biggest need right now that we need to focus on is we need to focus on and deal with traffic. We have the Holcomb Bridge exit, which is abysmal. We need to deal with it. Obviously, the city, or not the city, the state foiled, so to speak, what we were trying to do, but that's not the only area that has problems. And I know a lot of times people are talking about how the issue is, well, it's not us driving on these roads, it's all these people that are coming through that are going to use us as cut-throughs and all those things. But I still drive on those roads, and regardless as to whether or not other people are going to use them, I still have to use them, and you still have to use them, and we all have to sit in that traffic. And that traffic wastes time, it wastes money, it's bad for the environment, it adds additional pollution, and that needs to be addressed first. We need to put these parks on hold. We have 900 acres, as was just pointed out. We don't need another 25 acres. What we need to do is we need to fix the roads, we need to address the transportation issues, and once we fix that, then we can start talking about some of these other things. But until that happens, we need to focus on our wants and not our needs and not our wants. Thank you.
Thank you. Becky Spencer, your statement.
Thank you. Many thanks to the many thanks to the Roswell Women's Club for their continued support to the North Fulton area. I read that you have contributed over $1.8 million in the past 18 years. That is truly amazing. And of course, thank you for the continued tradition to put on these public forums which during election time. It's really appreciated. Thank you, ladies. For the last 39 years, my life motto has been to serve and protect. I did that through a career as a firefighter. When I became the fire chief in Roswell in 2004, it was what a great milestone for me. I set that goal for myself in the late 20s and was so proud when I achieved it. I believe our lives boil down to the differences we make in the lives of others, which is what led me to run for City Council Post 3 after retiring as fire chief. I want to continue to make a difference as a leader in the community. Being a resident of Roswell for 60 years, I've had a front row seat of watching it grow from a small town to one of the largest cities in the state. I take great pride in my city. I have given everything I have to this city and continue to serve as your council member to help steer us in the right direction as it grows is my #1 priority. There is not one of my opponents who knows this city up close and personal like I do. I have qualifications that no other candidates for Post 3 can compare. Setting and managing a $6 million budget for the fire department, 10 years as a department head managing 140 employees, attending approximately 250 council meetings, collaborating with all city department heads for more than 10 years, vast knowledge of process and experience, knowing which ones work and which ones need to be improved upon, and years of contributing to the community through service projects and mentoring. I'm the best candidate because I am for Roswell versus against Roswell and disheartened by current issues. I am here to listen to you. I'm here to act on your behalf. I'm here to serve you, and I'm here to protect you, and I'm here for you as I always have been. Thank you.
Thank you. Shayne Gray, your statement.
Hey, everybody. I'm Shayne Gray. I'm running for Post 3, and I'm going to be a little bit different than probably most everybody up here. You are not going to see me read. I will not read one time. I got a couple of notes on a scratch pad, but that's how I collect my thoughts. Everything you're going to hear from me is going to be 100% through the heart, not canned, not scripted, not polished, not mirrored, looking 400 times in a mirror. I started my professional career at Pope Chevrolet in Roswell in 1996. I started selling cars. Don't hold that against me. I started selling cars and I moved up through the ranks. After 2 years, I was a very young 22-year-old and got promoted into management. I was the youngest sales manager at that time in the history of Chevrolet Southeast region. That covers 11 states. I was the youngest. I've since moved within the exact same company and it's changed hands to AutoNation, but I've moved up. I'm single-handedly responsible for the performance of 19 dealerships covering 2 states, 7 different cities, and at the end of this month, at the beginning of next month, we will be adding in another 13 stores into my responsibility. The reason I bring that up is because I'm not the most well-known, even though as we said earlier, my family goes back 8 generations. My grandmother was a Coleman. But I will say this, when you're looking at the future, I'm 39 years old. I was, by the way, told I should say that because I look much younger. So I wanted to give you, it's okay to vote for me. I'm not too young to hold the position. Because I will say this, my company that I'm directly responsible for, I'm directly responsible for $345 million in net sales every single year. I am uniquely qualified to handle the challenges that Roswell has to throw at me in the future. Thank you very much, and thank you, Roswell Women's Club.
Thank you. Donald Horton, your statement.
Thank you, Hatcher, and the Roswell Women's Club for sponsoring this forum, and to everybody that's here that's wanting to hear about this important election. Roswell's a great place to live, but some on our council are on the wrong track about the kind of city the people of Roswell want to live in. They changed their zoning rules, and in the process, they jeopardize the very things that give Roswell its appeal. If we don't do something about it now, it may be too late by the next election. We are already making profound changes. For example, in the historic district, instead of 35% lot coverage that was in the old zoning code, now it reads up to 70% lot coverage through the new UDC. That's double what it was. Density was removed from the code. So now we're going from 1 or 2 homes per acre to 5 or 6 homes per acre, and in some cases 7 to 10 homes. And we're doing this next to established neighborhoods. And I have to ask, why? Let me be clear. We need development, but our focus is wrong. We are neglecting blighted areas all over Roswell. And I say, let's redevelop. Today, 88% of the people who work in Roswell can't afford to live in Roswell. In fact, many of us have kids that can't afford to live here. But these new developments, they're all about $400,000 cottages, $600,000 townhouses, and instead we should be encouraging development that will create housing for the young professionals and young families that are the future of our city. But to do that, we need some new blood on City Council. You have a lot of choices for Post 3, but I believe I'm the most qualified to deal with these issues. I have over 30 years' experience in business and a decade of service to my community. I've worked on the Roswell Initiative for Community Housing. I've helped neighborhoods and developers come together and create good projects that have the support of the people. I know and understand zoning and development from both the public and the private sector point of view, and I want to bring business experience, not just government experience, into our city operations. Most important, if you elect me, I will represent your interest on these issues and not march in step with the good old boys at City Hall. Thank you again, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen on the dais, if you'll excuse me, I want to correct a faux pas. I don't make many mistakes, but when I do, I make a big one. And what I'd like to do now is introduce 2 other guests that I omitted to recognize. The first being our mayor, Mayor Jerry Wood. Thank you. And the other being our Mayor Emeritus, Pug Mayberry. Thank you. All right, now we're going to get down to cases. And since we started on this end, I'm going to start the first question on this end for Mr. Horton. Holcomb Ridge Road is the gateway to Roswell, and the proposed $500 million Riverwalk is an Avalon-like mixed-use project that is proposed for the southeast corner of Holcomb Ridge and Georgia 400. It is perhaps the most valuable property in the city. Does this mixed-use project make sense to you?
I'm going to have to say, no, it doesn't make sense to me for a number of reasons. First of all, nothing has been done to improve the infrastructure around that area. And right now, if you try to get out of Martin's Landing or Horseshoe Bend in the morning, and you try to get on a 400, you have a miserable time, sometimes as much as an hour and 15 minutes trying to get to Georgia 400. There have to be major infrastructure changes first before we can allow that kind of development to occur. If you look on the other side, we were talking about doing an early off-ramp that would get onto Riverside Road. Riverside Road is a nightmare as well. And you see that at 4:30 in the afternoon, sometimes 4 o'clock in the afternoon, backing up from Highway 9 all the way down past the Catholic Church. And it's an impossible area, and we've got to fix the infrastructure before we allow any kind of development that would go there. And the other thing I would say is, if we're going to develop that area, maybe we should consider meeting with the residents in the area to determine first what they might like to have there. We know it's zoned for some higher density, but it doesn't have to be a 17% greater development than what we have at Avalon. And the other thing is, because this is such a speculative thing, we don't even know yet if Avalon's going to be successful. As I said, it's 17% larger than Avalon, the Riverwalk is. And we have those kind of developments down near the perimeter, down at Atlantic Station, and now up at Avalon. And frankly, for that kind of development, I think Roswell has missed the boat.
Mr. Gray, the same question.
Change is going to occur in the Riverwalk district. It's going to happen at some point because it's currently zoned for 1 million square foot of office space. The developer, the owner, could go in tomorrow and apply for a building permit, and it could be built immediately. There would be impact fees, but none that I feel that are going to provide the necessary, as Don was alluding to, infrastructure improvements that are absolutely necessary and mandatory. We're talking about putting 27,000 cars additional into what is already the worst, in my opinion, and backed up by a whole lot of people in here, worst intersection in the state. We're going to put 27,000 more cars in it? No. That area can't hold 27 more cars. We have to look at the density of it. Density's wrong. We have to look at alternative building materials that are going in there. Can I support it the way it is? Absolutely not. I've seen nothing. We're going to clear cut trees to put in a man-made silt pond that's supposed to not look like a silt pond because it's supposed to have vegetation around it. It's gonna look like a silt pond. I mean, it is what it is. There's been no conversation of high-end building materials. The pictures that we see that have been published, they're pretty. They're absolutely not accurate. They're, as I was told, directionally correct. But there's been no conversation about high-level building materials such as thirsty concrete, which is a completely permeable surface that allows water to be drained right into the soil, and you can park on top of it. It looks just like regular asphalt. We're not even exploring that option. In its current state, absolutely not. However, we have to be vigilant and we have to understand that change is going to occur there, and it can change without meetings. There is open zoning for 1 million square foot of office space. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer, your response.
Yes, sir. In its current state and way it's planned right now, I can't support Riverwalk because of the density. We're taking out 400 apartments of current establishments there now, and we won't put in nearly 1,200 apartments along with all the other buildings. And like the other Shayne said, you know, if we don't do anything, we could be inundated with over 1 million square feet of office space. So we have to be careful on what we ask for and what we look at and what we approve and what we disapprove. There's some things that I would like to tell you about that everybody knows. The traffic is terrible on Horton Bridge Road. I had an email from a gentleman this afternoon wanting to know what I was going to do about the traffic. Well, the best thing I can tell you about the traffic on Horton Bridge Road is stay off of it. Stay off of it. But, you know, in order for us to put a development like this in, we've got to have some relief on our roadways. And I just don't see that happening right now. The early off-ramp to 400 has pretty much been trashed. It's done, from what I understand. And even if it was there, it would dump a lot of traffic onto the back roads of Riverside Road and through Martin's Landing, and that just wouldn't be acceptable. Some good things about it is that it would help replace some of the blighted areas. The Swift School would go in there, which is a great asset to the city of Roswell, the Swift School. And it would ease overcrowding of Esther Jackson School, the way I would look at it. So the way it is today, I can't support it. I wished I could, but we have to be very careful about what we don't allow to get something that we really don't want. Thank you.
Mr. Porter, your views.
I like the idea of it. I like the concept of having, you know, walkable, multi-use, everything's kind of in that one little area where you can, you know, work, live, and play, as the developer was explaining it at the city council meeting. I think that that's great. But where we're trying to locate it, the amount that it's trying to be built out, everything that's being done with it, it just doesn't make sense. One, I want to just remind everybody that Avalon sat vacant, half constructed, not even half constructed, partially constructed for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I don't know the exact time. There's no reason why that same thing can't happen again with this situation, especially when you take the economy as a whole, because we all live inside the same economy. And if there's a downturn at the national level, it is going to trickle down, and that area is going to be, we're going to displace 400 residents. We're going to basically shut down a school, one of the local schools, and then it could just be left there even worse than it is right now, even more blighted than it is now. The other thing about it, if you just look at what the development is that's going in there, they want it to be a bunch of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. 1 and 2 bedroom apartments that are targeted towards millennials. And if you look at the type of construction that it is going to be really, really expensive to live there. Just like it's really, really expensive to live in the cool buildings that are all downtown, because they cost a whole bunch of money to be able to build these. My question is how are millennials going to be able to afford that? A lot of us have a hard time finding jobs. A lot of us are still living with our parents. And this area is being designed to attract millennials to it. That doesn't make any sense. And then the main issue, the main reason why it makes absolutely no sense is, again, we already have a problem with that area with traffic. That problem is only going to get worse. Now they say, well, we can only develop it if we take it from an E to an F, or a D, I guess, or F to an E, whatever, go up 1 level. But at the end of the day, they can't promise that. They can attempt to do it, they can say they're going to do it, but once it's built, we're going to be stuck with it, whether they fix those traffic problems or not.
Thank you. All right, we're going to get off that project, and Ms. Wynn, what other ways do you see to revitalize Holcomb Bridge Road, and what role do projects such as the proposed Riverwalk have in that revitalization, if any?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part.
What other ways are there to revitalize Holcomb Bridge Road?
Okay, I'm glad that you asked that question, because I was going to, if I stayed on Riverwalk, I was going to tell you that by law, I can't say how I would vote on a project, but I have many concerns about Riverwalk, and most of them were stated by the people that are running for Post 3. What I would like to see, and I have talked to the mayor and my colleagues about this, is I think what we need to do is some true redevelopment in Holcomb Bridge Road. And our true redevelopment places are the northwest, southwest quadrant. And that's where we have our most crime. And I think what would happen if we did this, we would be able to leverage all of our tools as Opportunity Zone, our Downtown Development Authority, and our Roswell Inc. to help with this workable master plan, because if it's not workable, it's not going to work. And what I would like to see is, if we're going to do a true redevelopment project, this is where it is, especially with the design of the Big Creek Parkway that we're looking at doing, and the possibility of MARTA being in that area, in the northwest quadrant. Holcomb Bridge, right now, it's a mess. We do have some more bond monies that we are spending on that, and I'm hoping that that's going to help it to alleviate the problem. We're not ever going to get rid of traffic, but I'm hoping that the projects that we have online that our transportation department is working very hard and very diligently on will help solve some of the problems that we're having here right now. And I just want to say one other thing about the northwest, southwest quadrant master plan, that one of the vital keys that we're going to have to put in that workable master plan is the completion, how we would complete the transportation infrastructure before we even started with any type of rehabilitation in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo, the same question. What are your ideas to revitalize Holcomb Bridge Road?
Sure. And so, that is very, thank you. So definitely revitalizing Holcomb Bridge Road and really our corridors is something I think important for all of Roswell. And I think there's a couple ways we need to do that. So first of all, I think that's something that we've seen and is very related, is the fact that developers and where they're going to want to spend their money and where they're going to want to look for their profits is going to be the most profitable locations. And with that, what we've consistently seen is there's not the incentive or the motivation to go to the corridors, to go to these blighted areas like parts of Holcomb Bridge Road, like the Northwest Quadrant, because you can gain a much better profit if instead you're going to go somewhere that's actually already established. For example, like into a neighborhood, or like onto Canton Street, or onto different historic areas. And as long as City Council has been, I want to use the term rezonings, because as Mrs. Wynn mentioned, she mentioned 40% of of rezonings were approved. But I think what we need to really clarify and we really need to address is, although from a legal standpoint, the number of rezoning changes is smaller, the actual bigger number involves, for example, conditional use changes. So for example, when everybody saw all those Vickers signs that was saying really just not to have this big of a project going in there and all the fights, that was not fighting a rezoning, that was fighting a conditional change use, one that my opponent and city council had voted for and supported. So I think what we need to really do is focus where conditional uses and rezonings, et cetera, are going to occur, is going to be the place we need to be flexible, which is Holcomb Bridge, which is in the blighted areas, and we really need to make things easier for developers to want to go there. And as well of that, we need to really look at the fact that there are speculators currently holding onto the properties, and we want to really make sure that we're making it as easy as possible for new development to go in there instead of in our established neighborhoods and on our historic areas.
All right, post one. Mr. Dippolito. Roswell is moving forward with its town green project at City Hall, including moving the Veterans Memorial. It would ultimately open a connection between Canton Street and Roswell Square. Do you support a Canton Street future for the square in Roswell?
I do. I have been very supportive of the City Green. I think it's a wonderful project, and let me explain to you why. When you look at the way cities are built and you look at the urban fabric, there's a pattern to way that growth happens. And particularly when you have a retail scenario like we have across the street, retail likes to have retail across the street to create energy. And that's one of the reasons why on Canton Street, you see the lower part of Canton Street is really strong, and there's really a lot of walkability, there's connectivity between all the shops. So people enjoy that environment, they enjoy that feel of it. When it starts to disperse, it gets a little weaker, but the strength is really when you have a lot of activity on both sides. One of the issues we have here on this portion of Alpharetta Street is that we have retail on one side and then we have woods on the other. Now, I love woods as much as anybody else. I love forests. Like I mentioned, we have 900 acres of parkland that we need to keep and maintain. But if we could make that space more active, then an active space becomes more of the urban fabric. And I use urban in the sense of a small town feel, not in the sense of a large city. But you have that connectivity. So all of a sudden it becomes an additional space. It creates a sense of place. And that's what's so unique about Canton Street is it has this sense of place. When you're walking down it, it just feels wonderful. It's a great place to be. There are wonderful things to do. There's a lot of different things going on. Imagine that right here between City Hall and the street where there's a lot of activity. There's people out on the park. There's people gathering. They're going to view the memorial. They are enjoying a lunch, perhaps out on the green. What it does is it ties it all together, and it helps then with things happening to the south of City Hall. Because right now, the growth kind of gets stymied because there's not that level of activity, there's not that continuation of positive areas and that continuation of sense of place. And this project will do that for us and continue it down south all the way down to the next square.
Thank you. Mrs. Zapata, the same question. As Roswell moves forward this town green project, would you support a Canton Street type of development continue down on the Roswell Square?
Well, just want to summarize a little bit about this project, the City Green, for people who is not familiar. This is a $15 million project that most probably we have to get a bond for it, to pay for it. And it's a beautiful area. You know, I've been walking this area a lot to know more, and there's two nice monuments there, Faces of the War and the World War II monuments. And it's an area, it's beautiful, it's a nice park. So unfortunately, you know, now it's kind of neglected because, you know, have not been taken care. I saw the monuments a little bit run down, leaves on the floor, unfortunately, but the place is beautiful, has a huge potential to be revitalized. So one of my idea is to have a high-end landscaping in the area with respecting the same feel and look of the area, but much beautiful landscaping, which definitely is going to cost much less than $15 million to the taxpayers. And I think that this will make already a nice place to people to get together in there. Will have access to parking right next to the city hall, so people can be walking from the parking lot in a transition to the Canton Street. And this is a perfect place on this walk to have a public art. That is a perfect place because people can walk and at the same time appreciate the public art and enjoy it where it should be. So I think that it has a huge potential, but not for $15 million project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Porter, we'll start with you this time for post 3. What other areas of downtown Roswell would you like to see redeveloped or rehabbed?
Appreciate it. Good looking out. I'd like to see the whole thing redeveloped, but I don't want it just redeveloped in a willy-nilly sort of a way where we just kind of hire this developer who's really not even attached to the city, just kind of chops up a section of land and says, hey, we're going to put all this stuff here that may or may not make sense for the city. What I would personally like to see, mainly because I'm a small business entrepreneur, I would like to see the individual small businesses making decisions on how they can best use their land to grow and build their businesses and have them have more control, and the city actually say a little bit less. Now, with that said, I'm not saying the city shouldn't approve things. I'm not saying the city shouldn't have a say in what goes on there. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the city should spend less time trying to direct businesses in the direction that they think they should go, and we should actually let the business owners, the people that actually know how to run businesses, we should let them actually pay a little bit more attention to how they're addressing their customers' needs. And as they start to address their customers' needs, it might be a little slower than having a bond, that's going to, again, tax my generation, but than having a bond to redevelop something. It might be a little bit slower, but it's going to be a lot smarter because the individuals that own the land, that own the property, that own these businesses are going to want to make sure that they do it in the way that's profitable, that's best for the situation, for the city, and that's responding to the residents that are the actual customers going down there.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer, the same question.
Please repeat that, Hatcher.
Yes. What other areas in the downtown Roswell do you think need revitalization, and how would you go about it?
I like Canton Street. I think that the city has done a great job along with the business owners there to put Roswell on the map with Canton Street. There's people that come from all over Metro Atlanta, Canton Street, to enjoy the area. I like the part of the old Winn-Dixie Shopping Center, 10800 Alpharetta Highway, that was revitalized. It's great. Sprouts is in there. I also think that the shopping center at the corner of Horton Bridge and Highway 9 needs the same transformation as the old Winn-Dixie does. As far as Canton Street, I would like to see Canton Street go south to the square. And that's going to take a long time to happen. It's going to cost a lot of money. And I think that Roswell needs that revitalization from Canton Street south. We just a few years ago did the streetscapes of Highway 9, Alpharetta Highway, from Norcross Street to Holcomb Bridge Road, which really, really enhanced that area. But as far as anything else, I think I pretty much said what I think should happen, but I really do like the fact that we can take Canton Street south to the square.
Thank you. Mr. Gray, revitalizing other areas of the city.
I think that as we're talking about Roswell, our city is such a tremendous area and community that there are only a few places that really need some spit and polish. And when you look at it, I couldn't agree more with Nate. We're looking at bonds and spending money. It's not necessary. Let's let the free market dictate that. Let's let the business owners, the people that want to invest. We have Gate City Brewing going in behind Pasties in what's been a automotive repair facility since I can remember. And then, of course, we look at the east side of Highway 9, whether it's the old Ridgeway or the old Publix south of Holcomb Bridge, they absolutely need to be renovated. But when the developers, when the owners of these businesses see what happened, right, 200 yards north at the Sprouts shopping center, that shopping center was dilapidated and couldn't even hold a Just Fitness for You in business for 6 months. So once the business owners start looking around and saying, hold on, here we go, here's a development that we didn't have to level, we didn't have to tear down and rebuild the whole thing. We were smart, we went in, we took out a section, we revitalized the entire area, and look at the return on our investment. Not our investment. We, as Roswellians, do not need to invest money. We need to invest the time, we need to invest the research, but we do not need to invest our tax money to redevelop a personal business. That's the free market's job. Thank you.
Mr. Horton.
I have probably a different idea about redevelopment in Roswell. First of all, I think we need to focus on redevelopment. That should be our focus rather than new development. There are several places, underutilized shopping centers all around Roswell. Particularly if we think of the one where the Southern Skillet used to be, that's a huge area. It's not near any neighborhood. You have a new apartment complex that's come out behind it, and that's an area, if we could encourage the owner of that property and a very creative developer to come together, I think that's an area where we can have the higher density that some of the people would like to see to have more of an urban feel. That could be a multi-use project. It could have apartments in it, it could have townhouses, it could have cottages, and it could have mixed use on the first floor with maybe a grocery store, and that becomes then a walkable community. It's across from the historic district, so it's easy for people to get over there. And the other place where we could have something similar to that is on the corner of Highway 9 and Holcomb Bridge. Again, it's a matter of redevelopment and encouraging the people that own the property to meet with and work with city planners and developers that are creative to come up with ideas that make those residential areas. It would also make it possible for people who are young professionals, millennials, people that can't afford to live in Roswell, and those people that want to work in or do work in Roswell would be able to find a place to live in those kind of developments. 88% of our workforce currently does not live in Roswell. So if we can find a way to develop areas for them to live, then they're not going to be commuting from other cities like Ackworth or Cumming or Woodstock and spending their money in those areas when they leave their work day, and they're not buying property in Roswell, they're buying property somewhere else, and they're paying taxes somewhere else. So we need to find a place for our young professionals to be able to afford to live in Roswell, and that will help our economic development as well.
Thank you. Back to post 2. Mr. Palermo, is government, is it government's place to actively promote this kind of redevelopment, or should we just step back and let the free market have its way?
Excellent.
Can you hear me now?
Should I answer you?
Yes.
Excellent.
Did you hear me?
I think I did.
Okay.
So really, in the question is it government's place to be encouraging this type of redevelopment? That's what I heard, and that's what I'm going to be answering. And I think my answer is really to a degree. I think it is very important that we do need to have a free market economy here in Roswell and working. We can't try to force a certain type of business to work that can't. And with that, at the same time, I feel we need to do a lot as a city government to really encourage business, encourage redevelopment, because it is something that benefits all Roswell citizens. So if I'm fortunate enough to earn your vote, I definitely will want to work with the multiple groups we have within Roswell for the public-private partnership to really be able to draw attention to the success that they can bring us, and really help them give the tools to encourage encourage this type of partnership, because with that, what we can control is we can control, again, the zoning. And I think that's an important issue. We want to make sure we have the right zoning that can help business be successful. And I think also what we can control is different ordinances, bylaws, et cetera. And so I think we've seen some very successful ones occurring in Canton Street. And at the same time, I don't want to give government too much credit, because again, what we've seen is the economy turn around, and we've seen again that Roswell has some very unique features. It has, again, very strong, successful neighborhoods, and it has great history that draw people to it. And I think that's why it's so important that we really need to protect what makes Roswell special, and that's just going to help business flourish.
Ms. Wynn?
Mr. Hurd, I'm assuming you're still talking about downtown Roswell.
It's any place really, but
Okay.
more specifically in commercial areas than residential.
Okay, what I feel like is more that government should be involved at somewhat, and I think we've already proven that we have done that with the tax incentives, with the opportunity zone. It was a state-driven tax incentive that Roswell was accepted to be able to use, and it has helped us a lot. That's what brought in GM for us. GM was supposed to be 1,000 jobs, we're now 1,600 jobs. And I think that helped out a lot with having our opportunity zone. We have a downtown development authority that's looking at rehabilitating blighted areas, commercial centers. We also have our economic arm, which is our Roswell Inc. And what they can do, they can bring in new businesses and help us retain existing businesses. So I think it is a private-public partnership that we have to look at. And I think that's what we have to do. But if we're talking about downtown Roswell, I think the first thing that we have to do that's going to help generate the rehabilitation and the revitalization we'd like to see is the historic gateway master plan becoming into fruition, and get rid of the reversible lanes. To me, I think that's what's hindering most of our economic redevelopment, is that area right there, because it's horrible. People can't walk. We don't have a walkability type of communities. And talking about walkabilities, when we're looking at these old shopping centers, they don't have to be shopping centers anymore. They can be a mixed use. We can have it as a walkable community where our millennials and our empty nesters can live, work, play, and live there and age gracefully in place. And so just because it's a shopping center doesn't mean that it has to become and stay a shopping center. So I think, yes, it is. I think it's a partnership of both the private enterprise people that own the land, and for government to work together. And let's see what we can do to make Roswell as great a place to live as it is now.
Thank you. Mr. Zapata, should Roswell encourage more workforce housing, even if that means allowing new apartments?
So let's define the workforce. Are we talking about the middle class, or?
I'm talking about where your police officers can live, where your
Right.
school teachers can live.
Absolutely.
People who are part of the fabric of the community, but often have to leave town to find a place to live.
Absolutely, yes. We have, like Don just mentioned, a high percentage, over 80% of our Roswell workforce cannot afford to live in Roswell. And with all implications that this bring to the city, like, you know, again, I'm going to repeat a bit what Don just make a good point of that they get paid, but then they use and expend all this money outside the city. So definitely we need to start working not only in high-end, high-density apartment complex or townhomes or multifamily, how they're called these days. And yes, definitely we need to work on apartments or something affordable for the workforce, so they don't have to commute, they don't have to congest our already very bad roads, local and state roads. So definitely the city have to look into getting into developing housing for the workforce.
Mr. Dippolito.
Thank you. The ideal situation is that we have a developer purchase an apartment complex and rehab it, and like we have seen over at Canton City Walk. Now, unfortunately, in that particular case, we didn't wind up with workforce housing, but I think there are opportunities for the city to be involved, to provide incentives, to provide tax incentives and so forth, and to work with our Downtown Development Authority where we can put in place some plans to enable that to happen. In that particular case, with Canton City Walk, that was such a blighted area and we had so many problems with it from a public safety standpoint that it really made sense for them to come in there and to redevelop that. And in that particular location, there was an opportunity there to provide housing that was a little higher end, that allowed young professionals to come in and to live close to Canton Street. We have a lot of apartment complexes in this city. We don't need to start adding more. What we need to do is provide incentives for people to take those apartment complexes and convert them into workforce housing. Now, there is absolutely a demand for that. And I have talked to restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, and the folks on Canton Street are just choking because they can't get their folks there to work. And you know what winds up happening is they have to pay people higher and higher wages, which cause the cost of the food to go up and so forth, and it makes it harder for all of us to go there to eat. So do we have a need for that? There is no question we have a huge need for it, but we need to be smart about it. We don't need to start putting up apartments everywhere. What we need to do is take the existing apartment complexes, provide incentives, and make sure that those are redeveloped in a way that we can provide for housing for people of all abilities.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go back to post 3, but I think we'll start with Mr. Gray this time. You get to go first. America is aging, and that means Roswell is aging. Should the city be more concerned with enough senior housing? Should people be allowed to age in the city, or do they have to leave the city when they reach a certain age? Since I'm getting there, I want to know.
Start my time after I'm done laughing, just please. What an...
Senior housing is
No,
an issue in every city.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, the average age of a Roswell resident, and that includes everybody, is 37.2 years old. So, in that, you're right, that is increasing. Me and my wife, we made the decision about 10 years ago that we were going to move here. This was going to be where we lived. Even though I am, like I said, 8th generation Roswell. I will say this, yes, there needs to be, absolutely without question, development. I lived in, for 7 years, me and my wife, we lived in the Heritage at Roswell, which is next to the Orchards, which is an active adult community. And within that active adult community, fantastic neighbors, they thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm looking at moving my in-laws into Roswell because hopefully, before too long, me and my wife will be having children. And ultimately, they're going to move with us. They don't have any other grandbabies here, and hopefully we'll be able to provide the source of joy for them and us as well. But we need spots, we need places, and not just places, not just oh, we're going to put them over here. No, the developers, they need to come up with innovative plans, and we looked at, we talk about the developments at the old Richway at the Roswell Mall, and then you look at the Publix. These are fantastic spots for the simple reason that right now they're completely underutilized. And like I said, I lived in the Heritage at Roswell, which is runs along Highway 92, Holcomb Bridge Road. And it's with the developments in place, you don't hear the road traffic, but it's convenient to everything. It was walkable. I can't tell you how many nights I walked home from Tokyo Boat. It's a fantastic restaurant. But I will say this, when it comes to our elders, the people that were the foundation of this community for so many years, there should be absolutely no reason that they should leave Roswell if this is where they want to continue to reside. Thank you.
Mr. Horton, your views?
But there are a number of different kinds of housing types for seniors. Obviously, you have the independent living. You see something like that in the orchards around Roswell. There's also what we would call assisted living, and there are different levels of assisted living as well. And then you go all the way to nursing homes. So we have a couple of nursing homes in the area. Probably not as many as we need. The demand is growing. The aging population is growing. We need more assisted living as well. That population that could use assisted living is growing. People that used to go into nursing homes now can go into assisted living. It used to be nursing home was the only place they could go. Now they can go into assisted living. There are
Yes,
also
now what is the city's role in meeting this problem?
I think the city's role is to encourage that kind of development. And there are places where that kind of development makes a whole lot of sense. I see additional types of developments like the orchards. I think Del Webb communities are also a type of community that active seniors can get involved in. So there are things that we can do to encourage those people to bring those, although I will say there's not a whole lot of land left for development in Roswell, so it really is going to be redeveloping areas that might otherwise be used in some other way, and we have to encourage that.
Mr. Spencer, same question.
Hatcher, before I answer that question, I'd like to know at what age you're going to ask people to leave Roswell. Be careful.
I'm not going to ask him to leave anywhere.
Okay.
I just want to know if I can stay.
Okay. As I went around and talked to people in my campaign, I spoke to a lot of seniors, and a lot of them were widowed. And they live in large houses, and they want to stay in Roswell, but they can't afford to come to Roswell and grab an apartment and stay here because the prices of everything is so high. I'm going to tell you that we have a lot of assisted living homes in Roswell. We have 16 to be exact, and 2 more coming out of the ground. Those places are full. We have nursing homes that are full. And the people that want to stay in Roswell and want to live in Roswell need a place that they can afford. The price of land in Roswell is so high. Where are we going to find a developer to come in and build the type of housing we need for our seniors at a price they can afford? I just don't see it happening. I really don't see it happening. The seniors that we have here, they're hurting. And they're hurting because we don't have that place. I suggested to one lady, maybe she should look at Grove Way. She said, no, thank you. I will not go to Grove Way. I said, well, if you're looking for affordable housing, that is probably the only affordable housing in Roswell that a senior can go to and live. So yes, I would encourage the developers to come in, look for property, redevelop if possible, and put cottage-type homes that these seniors can afford. They can't afford the homes that are $400,000 to $600,000, $700,000, $1 million. They can't do that. They want to move out of those, and they want to move somewhere small so they don't have to cut the grass, they don't have to trim the bushes. They get up in the morning, do what they want to, sit out on a porch, and then they're all good. So yes, I strongly encourage that to happen, but I just don't see it happening in Roswell.
Mr. Porter.
Could you just repeat it again, the question, please?
Yes, Roswell has an aging population just like every city in America. The baby boomer generation is getting older. So what, if anything, should the city do to encourage the type of housing that would allow them to stay in the city?
So I guess the first thing I'd have to know is, why are seniors feeling forced to leave the city? Why is it that they feel they can no longer live here? Is it because they can't afford the taxes on a house they already own? If that's the case, then one of the easy things for the city to do is stop spending money on vanity projects, lower the millage rate so that seniors can afford to stay in homes they've already paid for. If the situation is different, if the situation is they need assisted living and they need help, we've already said that there's assisted living facilities. Of course, I want them to be able to stay, but there's only so much capacity. There's only so much land that we can actually have. So to address those, we definitely need to have some redevelopment, but I don't necessarily think that it's the city's role. Again, I think it's going to be the free market's role. I think that if there is this demand for this senior living, we need to make sure that we create an environment from the city council level that allows for the free market to do its job, as opposed to us saying, well, what we need to do is we need to do a tax incentive to make sure that this gets done over here. Because what you end up doing is you end up raising the millage rate or creating a bond that the seniors that already have their homes paid off end up now no longer being able to afford the taxes on a home that they already own. So now they have to sell their home so that they can go live somewhere where they have to afford. So while government tries to do, while government tries to solve some of these problems with these different incentives, there's always these unintended consequences. So as a businessman, I firmly believe in the free market, and I firmly believe that if we allow the free market to do its job, it'll start to address these needs and help out with these senior citizens to be able to stay here.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Wynn, your question is, residents along Holcomb Bridge Road are pushing for the purchase of 50-plus undeveloped acres east of Old Alabama Road for parkland. The asking price is $5 million. That's the asking price. Would it be a wise investment for Roswell, given that the city already owns the 160-acre Big Creek Park nearby that has not truly been developed?
That's a good question, and I'm assuming you're talking about Seven Branches. And
Yes.
I think what is very unique about Seven Branches, it is approximately 53 acres of untimbered old growth trees there, and it has the potential of connectivity to our schools, our new library, and some of our commercial areas. I also think that I've asked my council and mayor if we could do an archaeological study there, because my understanding that there is some sensitive areas in that 53 acres. If that's the case, then I think we could look for grant monies to help buy that acreage. $5.3 million is a lot of money to spend. I don't know if I could approve that amount of money, but I think there are ways of doing it with either some type of, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it, it's like land preservation organizations or whatever, because God is not making land like that anymore. And I know there is some buildable places on it, but I would hate to see that we miss an opportunity to be able to save something like that for our grandchildren. And for me too, because I would love to be able to walk that piece of property.
Mr. Palermo, what do you think of the idea?
Sure. So for the Seven Branches project and a piece of land, I do support the city purchasing it, I think for different reasons. And specifically, my concern is the price. I think it is very tough to develop it. So therefore, the fact that the city would be able to purchase it would, I think there is the room for negotiation and looking at other different ways to make it more cost effective for the city. That being said, the big reason why I see us wanting, I personally think we as a city should buy it, is because frankly, what we've been seeing is just so much of this much higher density everywhere we see lots of just trees being cut down. Look at Golding Place, look at there's all over town, there's places just full of townhomes. And I'm concerned that if we don't really preserve it as a park, it's going to just turn into just more of that high density housing. And again, as discussed, when Holcomb Bridge already does not have the infrastructure to support that added traffic. So a big part of really what's important to me and important to a lot of residents I've spoken to is really our housing values. And so I think having that another park right there is just going to really add to our housing values, where filling it up with townhomes is not. And specifically, what I want to add as well is going back to the UDC and the code, that if the UDC allows 5 homes to be built around Dolvin House right next to Bullock Hall, then we can certainly expect that there would be a lot higher density right there. And again, that's why I want to see us do it. But what I'd love to see, and actually an important part of my platform as well, more community involvement, more direction, because again, it's the people of Roswell that should be running the city, not anybody sitting up here. Is I do like the idea of being able to, for example, go to a bond, put it up for a vote, give a chance for just more of Roswell to decide what as a city do we want.
Thank you. Mr. Dippolito, there's a proposal to for a 1-cent sales tax for Greater Atlanta transportation improvements. This would include expanding bus and rail into North Fulton. Would you support the tax, and would you support more bus and rail in North Fulton?
Generally, I don't support additional taxes. I think we really need to take this out to the taxpayers and see what they feel about it. There are obviously pros to having additional transportation dollars. We know from all the issues that we have here in Roswell, particularly around 400 and Holcomb Bridge, that we have tremendous needs from a transportation standpoint, much more than we could possibly fund. One of the projects that I have been working on since I've been on council is the Holcomb Bridge Corridor Study, which was started under my watch over transportation. And we looked at that whole section from Warsaw to the Holcomb Woods Parkway and really broke down the needs that we have at 400 and Holcomb Bridge and took that entire project, or it's actually a series of projects, broke it down into 22 different projects in order to fix that intersection the best that we can. Now that's going to cost well over $100 million. So how do we fund that? Certainly it can't come out of Roswell's coffers, and it certainly is not something that we can do just in one fell swoop. But we have been working with our officials at the state, trying to lobby them for money. But one opportunity for something like that would be through additional taxes. Now, I think that's absolutely something that has to go out to the taxpayers and let people vote on it. Let people decide, is that something that they want to have? Obviously, there was an effort to do that a few years ago, and it fell flat. And I think that was because it wasn't, there was not a comprehensive list that people could understand. And if somebody understood a project list and they could see how it was impacting them, maybe it'd be something they would support, maybe it wouldn't be. So, it's a difficult question. It really depends on what is the list that gets put together and what does the public really feel are their needs. But we certainly have a transportation problem, and how do we fix that and how do we go about funding that? I think that's clearly a question that has to go out to the public.
Mr. Zapata, your opinion.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, there's a proposal for a 1-cent sales tax in addition to what we already pay to fund Atlanta area transportation improvements. Is this a good idea, which would also include expanding bus and rail service to North Fulton? Do you support bus and rail in North Fulton?
Okay, so regarding the sales tax increase, I think it's up to the residents of Roswell. I will submit this for them to decide if it's something that they want or not. Then we have to divide this in, local problem with the transportation, Fulton or Georgia. So we have to work with Fulton and Georgia much better. We have to create those partnership with the state and the county and get their support to get improvement on transportation. We have, transportation, we have only today a portion of Holcomb Bridge and Alpharetta Highway. And the project of Martha going all the way up to Windward and stopping maybe here or Mansell. So it's a project that, we have to look in this and might help, but also, we have to look into the local or city bus services that, something that could be provided, eventually negotiated with Martha. But definitely something that we need to look into because the traffic today is horrible, either local roads or state or roads. So traffic definitely is something that we need to look and work with, again, with the GADOT, with Fulton, Atlanta Regional Transportation, to find a solution. We have, we have to be smarter and get into this because transportation and traffic, that they goes hand to hand. We need to address both, and especially traffic that make the quality of life that we all like and we all enjoy here in Roswell, but unfortunately traffic doesn't help to improve our quality of life. So traffic is very important.
Thank you. We're going to start with last over there. All right, I'm going to go with Mr. Porter. I'm going to ask you about the 50-plus acres that are up for sale on East Holcomb Bridge Road that a lot of people want us to buy to preserve. Is that a good use of our money? How do you feel about that?
Last time we did this, I was the only person that was 100% against it, and I'm pretty sure I'm probably still the only person that is 100% against it. One of the things that's gone thrown out last time about that land is that it's unbuildable for the most part. So if it's unbuildable, it'll preserve itself. But the main reason isn't that. The main reason is the fact that it is a vanity project. It is another thing that we don't need to spend money on. Now, if the land is donated, absolutely. If the land is given to us, if somebody wants to put a trust together for the land and give it to the city, 100%, I'll be the first person to support it. But that's not what I've heard. That's not what was suggested by everybody last time. What was suggested by everybody, for the most part, was a bond, which means I'm paying for it again. My generation's paying for it. My kids are paying for it. I think that's immoral. I think it's absolutely immoral to say, hey, listen, we want this for us, so we're going to make our kids pay for it. So under zero circumstances whatsoever would I ever support that project if it meant taking out a bond or using taxpayer dollars to pay for it.
Mr. Spencer.
Thank you, sir. I like the idea of preserving that piece of property for the Parks and Recreation Department, but we don't have to buy the whole 53 acres. There are some parts of that property that is buildable, but the majority of that property is rock, hillsides, and I really just believe the majority of it is undeveloped. Parks and Recreation can use the creek bed and the old road bed there, which probably is about 30 acres. I think that Parks and Recreation would be great with that. So let's see if we can work with the people who have the property for sale and see if they would be interested in selling the city the area that they want to use for the park. And then let's see if we can work with the people who are selling the property and see if they would be interested in selling the other property to developers, or however we need to go about getting that. I don't think that we should buy the entire tract, but I do want us to look at purchasing the area around the 7 branches. That would be a great passive park. People could enjoy it. I've come to learn that people could park at East Roswell Park, walk down and enjoy it, and I would be one of the first ones to do that. But I just really don't think that we need to purchase the whole 50 acres. And if the city decided to purchase the whole 50 acres, would there be interest from the council and the citizens of selling off the property that could be developed for a use that would fit with that neighborhood? Thank you.
Mr. Gray.
You know, I spoke of this at last week's debate, and I'm absolutely for the 53-acre purchase. $5.3 million, like I said last week, I think it's the best money we could spend. However, like I said before, I'm in the car business, and like I said last week, money talks. When we look for landowners in the eye and say, this is what we're willing to spend, take it or leave it, here is the money, we're ready to sign on the dotted line. It's amazing when there's the money, all of a sudden people's attitude starts changing about they see that dollar in front of them and they realize that, hey, this isn't such a bad deal for us anyway. What scares me is that if these 4, and from every indication that I have not personally met with them yet, but with these 4 landowners, from what I've been told and what I understand, they are unified in their selling. Whatever they plan on doing together. Well, here's the issue with that. I've walked it. Yes, most of it is completely undevelopable, but as we know in the UDC, you can exchange green space for density. The parts that are completely 100% undevelopable, hey, that's green space in a developer's eyes, and that's a part of the undevelopable portion that, hey, is a trade-off for the density. I absolutely think a bond is the way to go. I am not a millennial. I am Generation X. However, my wife is a millennial, and we will be having kids soon. Now, with that being said, I am thinking about their future, because I'm thinking about not their future when they're 7 or 8 years old, but I'm thinking about their future when they're 25 and they have to get on 400 to commute to Midtown or to downtown Atlanta. Thank you.
Mr. Horton, your view.
Hatcher, I was afraid I wasn't going to be asked that question. I've been wanting to answer that all night. Let me tell you something. First of all, that large area of property, that kind of property is disappearing so rapidly in Roswell. 90% of the property around Roswell is already developed. So here's an opportunity to preserve a natural area for our children and grandchildren, and I'm all for it. It doesn't have to cost the city $5 million. One, it could be a negotiable price, but two, there is such a thing called the Land Preservation Trust. And if the sellers are willing to talk to the people who work on those kinds of trusts, they can get tax benefits for that. That would reduce the cost to the city if they donate some parts of the property to the city. But that takes me to another issue that I want to talk about, and that's City Green. We've spent somewhere around, or are earmarked around $800,000 towards City Green so far, and the project, the master plan, looks at spending roughly $15 million over a couple of years to get that project developed. We own that land. It's not going to go anywhere. So why not, instead of developing that land right now into the City Green project, use $5 million of that to go to those individuals and say, we want this property. We'll help you do the Land Preservation Trust, and maybe we'll give you $3 million to go along with it. We can do that. Now, I got an email from somebody who I think has been very important to this city over several decades. His name is Zach Henderson. And I want to read something to you because I think this is really important. In my opinion, the absolute worst move the mayor and council have ever initiated is to destroy the Faces of War Memorial Celestial Park of pristine shade trees and relocate the 1,000-plus blood-stained memorial bricks and walkways, tear down the existing Faces of War Memorial, and rebuild a replica of it in the edge of the Smith Plantation Woods. Numerous veterans have expressed their total dismay with this disgraceful action, and ignoring the sacrifice in creating this tribute to honor the patriotic men and women who fought, bled, and died for us. He also sent this and detailed information about why that monument could not be moved. And if they would have read it, first of all, nobody on the council and nobody in the city paid any attention to that email and the details that he gave. And I know you want me to stop, but this is so important, I can't stop.
Please, you have to stop now.
All right.
We'll be glad to wait out in the hall and listen to your final comments.
All right.
But since you went down that road, I'd like the rest of your opponents here a chance to weigh in on the plan for the City Green out here behind us. Do I need to repeat the question? Because then I got to find here it was. Okay.
If we need it.
The city is moving forward with the Town Green project at City Hall, including moving the Veterans Memorial, as we just heard. It would ultimately open a connection between Canton Street and Roswell Square. And my question was, do you support a Canton Street future for the Roswell Square? But feel free to weigh in on your opinion of the Town Green that they want to create here.
Absolutely. Yes, I see a future. That doesn't, now, funny, we're talking about the future, and as we all know today is Back to the Future Day, right? But ultimately, I'm not thinking about 2015 for this project. This is a vanity project in every sense of the word. You can buy a whole lot of fabric for $50 million. That's all I got to say. And we talked about the fabric of a community. Yes, that's fantastic. Doesn't necessarily have to be right now. The connectivity to downtown, or excuse me, to the square, absolutely. This is fantastic. This is wonderful. These are wonderful grand ideas. And, my wife and I, we go to Canton Street, pretty much every weekend. At least we run the river every weekend. And we talk about how wonderful it would be to, to go here and to walk here, and how interconnected everything would like to be. However, for $50 million, that's ridiculous. And then on the flip side, you're telling me, so we're going to spend $50 million and we're going to move a prized war memorial, 2 of them? Absolutely lunacy in this. Yes, we put that war memorial, we put the war memorial there for a reason, to memorialize our vets. Unfortunately, my mother put her foot down in Desert Storm after she sat up every single night watching CNN and said, "Oh no, not you. 2 brothers, 6 uncles, and my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather all served in the Army." Why in the world would we do that? You're not hearing, as crazy as the people are in Washington, you're not hearing them talking about moving the Vietnam War Memorial, are you? No, it's stupid. That's why. Absolutely don't agree with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer.
I like the concept of the Roswell Green here at City Hall. I visited Duluth, Georgia, where they did exactly what the city would like to do here. I watched a concert. I watched people enjoy sitting on the grass, bringing their children, having a dinner, enjoying, visiting with friends, bringing friends, and it was quite an experience for me and my wife. We enjoyed it, and we're going to go back. But I think we can have that same feel here with the green space. And does the memorials have to be moved? I don't know. I'd rather they hadn't be moved or wouldn't be moved. But I think that we have a great opportunity to have something here that would bring people here to enjoy the green space, to enjoy sitting and talking with each other. City employees could go out there, and they can go out there now, but they can go out there and enjoy the time that they have on breaks and do their lunch out there. It would bring money. I think it would bring money into the city too, once it's developed. But I do like the plan. I just am not really convinced that the memorials need to be moved. Thank you.
Mr. Porter.
I find it odd that a lot of people talk about preserving green space and preserving green space and preserving green space, but they don't want to preserve history. The idea of moving the war memorial is unbelievably offensive to me, and that to me should be off the table right off the bat. That shouldn't even be considered. The fact that it's in the plans, I think, is a little embarrassing. With that said, though, I'm sure you guys are going to be surprised by this, but I consider it a vanity project. And I'm not interested in the vanity projects. Again, now this is a cool vanity project, I'll admit. It's really nice. We get to sit in, grass, and we get to walk everywhere, and that's awesome. And I love that idea, and I think it's good. But again, it's going to add more traffic. That traffic issue has not been dealt with. And instead of spending, I didn't realize it was that much, $50 million on, I don't know if that number is correct, but okay, then I won't use that number again if it's not correct. But regardless of the amount that it costs, that money could be spent more wisely in addressing our traffic problems first. Once the traffic problems have been addressed, then we can talk about high density, and then we can talk about all this additional green space and all these vanity projects that we want to spend money on. Because again, how are we going to fund it? Probably with a bond or a tax increase. So again, there's this perpetual spiral that ends up happening to where, sure, we want to preserve 400 and we want to do all this stuff for future generations, and it ends up turning into this white elephant that generations have to go bankrupt trying to keep up these green spaces and all this other preservation that we've done.
Thank you. All right, post 2. I want to ask you the question about the proposed 1-cent sales tax for Greater Atlanta transportation improvements. This would include, of course, expanding bus and rail service into North Fulton. Would that be a good use of that money?
We're talking House Bill 170, I'm assuming. And that has the potential of generating $1.2 billion for transportation projects for a 5-year period. But we have a long way to go, and Roswell is in the process of working closely with the cities to develop what we need is a comprehensive regional plan that is acceptable to all parties. If we don't have that, then it doesn't go anywhere. And I also want to emphasize very strongly that ultimately it's you, the citizens of Roswell, or the citizens of Fulton County, who will vote on a referendum if this is how you want us to fund our transportation projects. I'm not going to say I'm against it or I'm for it yet because I have not seen the list of projects that I think will benefit Roswell. And until I see that, I'm not going to make a decision. But again, ultimately, the decision will be made by our voters countywide if this is the way that we want to go and fund our transportation projects.
Mr. Palermo.
Excellent. So this is a type of topic, again, I've discussed a lot earlier, that I really feel we need more direction from the people, and luckily this is an example where the people of Roswell and people of our community will get to voice their opinion. I think, you know, in talking to so many different residents all over Roswell, we all agree on two things. We hate the traffic issue that we have and want transportation improvements, and we also hate paying taxes. So I think that's an important question, something we need to open up to additional people, and really all the people of Roswell, and specifically actually going to Mr. Porter's talking about the paying of bonds, et cetera. So although in Roswell the millage rate has not increased, when you have a bond that's supposed to expire, and then you actually have a new bond, even though your millage rate can stay the same, that is officially considered a tax rate increase. And that's something that we do want to make sure that we are watching, because we don't want any residents complaining that as soon as the money's taken out of their pocket, you're never able to get the government's hand out of it. So I think that's just an important issue again. And I really on this issue would just open it up to everybody, because without a doubt we do need to improve transportation. So that's where I stand on that issue.
All right, post one, this will be the last question. Does Roswell need to be concerned with redevelopment in blighted areas, or should we let the business community work its magic? I'm talking about blighted areas now.
Who are you directing that toward?
To you.
To me?
Sorry.
All right, so is the question, what is the city's role, or
Yes.
could you be more?
How much should it do to encourage development in areas where we want redevelopment?
Yeah, thank you. Since I've been on council, and actually before I was on council, one of the things that people have always said to me is, what are we going to do about the old commercial centers? That is one of the main topics. It's either, what are we going to do about the traffic, or what are we going to do about the blighted areas? So I think that's something that the people want us to address. So I do believe that that's something that is supported by our community and something that we really do need to address. And I do believe that the city has a role in that. But you need to remember that these properties are privately held. So until the property owner actually wants to do something, there's not a lot we can do to the properties themselves other than provide encouragement. We have Roswell Inc., our economic development group. They go out and they talk to the property owners and try to encourage them. But the city's role really can only be limited to what we have control over. We have control over the streets. We can control the infrastructure. One of the first things I did when I was on council was I helped push through the Midtown Streetscape project, which added the brick lanes down the center and the street lighting on the sides. That has resulted in property owners actually implementing additional changes to their own properties. So we've seen Pure go in, the Lucky's redevelopment, Hugo's, we have a new school. There's a lot of good things that have occurred there, and I believe a lot of that is the result of the city's investment in the streetscape. So the city can provide improvements to the streetscape, the city can provide additional infrastructure, and one of the things that the UDC did was the UDC allowed for mixed-use development. That's the first time we've been able to do that on some of these commercial properties. And we've heard time and time again from some of these commercial property owners that they can't afford to redevelop those properties unless they can do something more on them. Now, that's a whole other discussion. What are we going to allow on those properties? And the answer is it depends. It depends on where it is, it depends on what it is, it depends on what they're proposing. But having the ability to do mixed use in commercial areas has had a huge impact just in some of the proposals.
Thank you. Mr. Zapata.
Well, I would like to, divide the redevelopment in Roswell in two. One, the commercial, which is all these shopping centers that they're run down, that definitely need to be redeveloped and revitalized. And for that, they've been doing some, they have a couple of good examples on East Roswell, where I'm coming from. In East Roswell, there's 2 shopping centers that have been revitalized, and now they got tenants and small businesses there that the community really wanted. And so I think that we should be doing more and encouraging more either the shopping center owners as well as small businesses. And small businesses, we really need to encourage them and facilitate their life. I have a good example. I have a wine distribution company. I moved from Smyrna 6 years ago. My first choice was Roswell, near my house. So I came here 6 years ago, and they asked the requirement. They gave me a pack like this to fill, plus $3,000 for the license for a wine distribution company. So guess what? I live in East Roswell. I have the same distance for Norcross. So what I did, I went to Norcross, and they gave me 3 pages. The business development manager there helped me through the process in 3 days, and it still cost me $500 the license to operate a warehouse in Norcross. So this is one point. The second point is about the residential. We have some rundown apartments or multifamily units that they need to be redeveloped. And this is a perfect example that we can redevelop this for the workforce that we've been talking tonight. And I guess we all agree that we need this workforce to stay in Roswell, not only for spending all the money they have, but also because in the case of the police, it's so important that they live in our community because they understand better our community and they can fight better the crime and anything that they need to help the community with. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, 1 minute summation, Mr. Horton, 1 minute.
Thank you. I hope this forum has given you an idea about what each of us stands for. I believe I'm the best candidate for post 3 because my agenda is your agenda. I've been successful in business for over 30 years, and I understand the private sector as well as city government. I've served my community in everything from HOAs to arts to housing development, and I will serve the Roswell citizens because some of our city council aren't doing that very well. Most of you tell me you don't want to live in an urban center where the downtown buildings come right to the street and the houses are crammed together and there's little green space on city lots. You tell me you want to fix the blight and put higher density where it makes sense, not around our established neighborhoods. You say the city council needs to address traffic and infrastructure, and you tell me your government isn't listening to you. I think that means we need a change, and the time to make it is now. The mayor and some council members are pulling for one of my opponents because he's been part of their club for years. It's time for you to be heard, and if you honor me with your vote, I'll make sure someone listens to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1 minute, Mr. Gray.
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming this evening. And one thing that's unique about post 3 is I'm not running against these gentlemen up here. I'm running for post 3. I have no idea how these gentlemen will vote, but I do know how I will vote. I will vote for my wife, for myself, for you, and for my children that hopefully will be coming along at some point. I will say this. When I look down at the list of things that I absolutely want you to know about me, number 1, I think I can sit up here and say that I'm the only 100% self-funded candidate. I will not accept 1 penny of money and have turned money down. Every penny that I've spent on my campaign has come out of my wife and my personal bank account. I'm doing it because I believe in Roswell. Roswell is a part of who I am and is a part of my DNA. I am here sitting before you to tell you that my goal, my job, 100% from day one, is 100% working on the density, that equals the traffic that equals the density. They go hand in hand. I'm not going to stop until we rectify both. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer.
I have an unprecedented knowledge of this amazing city and what makes it so special. It's absolutely imperative that someone with my experience and love for the citizens and the community be elected on November 3rd. We are experiencing tremendous opportunities of economic growth, which brings us to an important crossroads that requires skill, experience, and proven leadership. We must wisely take advantage of these opportunities while also being careful to protect our quality of life that we love. I will continue to serve and protect you as I have for so many years by listening and making wise, meaningful, well thought out, sustainable, and sometimes very tough decisions. I would appreciate your vote, and you will be honored that you did vote for Ricky Spencer. And the other night I was labeled as a good old boy and a City Hall insider, and tonight I'm in a club. Mr. Horton, I appreciate the compliments. Thank you very much.
Mr. Porter.
I'm invested in this city. And when I say I'm invested in this city, I don't just mean I own a house here. I own 2 businesses here. My wife and I each own one, located in Roswell. I employ 8 people right here in Roswell, 5 of which actually live here. So when I'm talking about the taxes that go to GM, that's money that I don't get to invest in my own business. That's money that local business owners don't get to invest in their own businesses. That money comes from somewhere, and it's taken from the local business owners, and it's given, and the residents too. Thank you for your comments. But it's given to other businesses, incentivizing them to come here. But my established business that's been here, that's employing people here, doesn't get that. Maybe if I moved it to the other side of Roswell, I might get a little special incentive because that's an incentive area, but that's not good for my business. I'm invested in this city above and beyond a lot of the people on this stage because I want to see this city grow, and I want to see it grow not just in population, but I want to see the businesses in this area grow, and I want to see them thrive as well.
Ms. Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. I want to thank the Women's Club again tonight for hosting and for y'all taking time out on your Wednesday night to come sit here and listen to us jabber for 2 hours. Roswell is a great place to live, work, and raise families, and I think that you can see that that's been the theme from all of the candidates in this race. The city is fiscally sound, services continue to improve, and our millage rate has not increased. These don't happen by accident, guys. They are the results of strong leadership and the vision of the elected mayor and city council. Our city is a model for Metro Atlanta and throughout the state. And to achieve this, we have had to make difficult decisions, taking into account protecting the interests of our neighborhoods, yes I do, improving infrastructure, and allowing development in appropriate areas. The city cannot stop landowners from asking for rezoning, but we can manage and condition their requests so we can preserve our Roswell's character. If we're elected, I will continue to listen to you and serve as your neighborhood advocate and as your voice on City Council, and I would appreciate your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palermo.
Excellent. So luckily for me, I was looking at the audience, and about half of the people here are already supporters of mine, which I really appreciate. I want to apologize. I'm actually going to address the other half that I haven't spoken with yet. I have a big request for you. Please, when you're thinking about on November 3rd who you want to vote for, please do not just make the decision based off of this one evening. What I really ask you is, please, on my flyers outside, I have my phone number, I have my email. Please reach out to me. Please speak with me. This is why I have such a great base of support, even though I just met them really during this campaign. I really am asking you that instead of just looking at just this evening and really making the decision on who you want to serve you for the next 4 years, please, in addition to speaking with me, please look at really what's happened in really in the last 4 years, last 8 years. Please decide and look to yourself if you really love what you see in parts of Holcomb Bridge and Highway 9, if you love what's happened around Goulding Place, or the fact that Dolvin House at any time can be built with 5 houses around there right now today, or if you like that much higher density with all the townhouses everywhere. So please speak with me, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Mr. Dippolito.
Thank you. Mr. Gray, I certainly hope that when you have a child that the birth announcement's in the newspaper for everybody.
No charge.
That would be fabulous. That'd be fabulous. Once again, I'd like to thank the Roswell Women's Club for hosting this event, and I'd like to thank Mr. Hurd for being a wonderful moderator tonight. Thank you so much. I started off tonight talking about quality of life, and quality of life doesn't just happen. It's something that you have to plan for, and we need to plan for a good foundation. And part of that is that we need to strengthen our local economy, we need to promote redevelopment, and we need to improve transportation. And those are things that we talked a little bit about here tonight, and they're all way too big topics to try to cover in such a short period of time. But I talk a lot about it on my website. So if you go to richforroswell.com, there's plenty of information in there. It tells you about my perspective on all that, and I'd love for you to take a look at it. It's been an honor and a pleasure serving each and every one of you. I hope that I have the opportunity to continue that. I look forward to serving you and as also protecting and enhancing our quality of life. And I'd appreciate your vote on November 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Zapata.
I want to thank the Roswell Women Club for organizing a great event for all my neighbors from Roswell. I've lived in Roswell for the last 15 years, and I have a small business company. I'm running for Roswell City Council because I'm concerned about the future development and growth of our historical and charming city. I will bring to the City Council a new approach and perspective regarding the analysis and decision process. It's going to be based from the resident perspective and sustained by solid data and not by subjective personal interest full of assumptions and generalizations. I can give you some good examples of my approach. I will promote infrastructure first before approving any new high-density development. I will invest in traffic flow first before spending $500,000 on decorating a bridge on top of 400 with public art. And I will make sure the City Council communicate with the neighbors and does a better job in engaging the residents. It is time to reboot the City Council, and the place is to start by voting for me on November 3rd. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Now, if all of you would please stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, these people back here are why the American system works in Roswell. They make the system work. They give you some choices. You've got a lot of decisions to make, but I'd like you to thank them all now for coming out.
Yeah, so was I. Sitting on that airplane.